So admitting you're wrong is harder now. Politicians just don't do it. It sticks to you forever. It's very hard. People in power don't want to do it. They'll fight it. They'll argue it. So admitting you're wrong, because everything now, stuff used to just, disappear into the ether. Now you got the tweet, you got the Instagram, it lives forever. It's $1 zillion industries. I mean, there are people that make, it's an industry of mocking people's mistakes. That's like trolling is like something, a real thing on social media. And so you don't get coaches in the NFL in their first game or any game acknowledging, Belichick won't. He's made a mistake with his offense. A defensive coordinator as a play caller, that's a mistake by Belichick. It's an absolute mistake. He will never admit it. But Nathaniel Hackett on Monday night attempted, instead of giving Russell Wilson the ball on a 4th and 5 to get 5 yards, which he's done, a dozen times in his career or more, they attempted to kick a field goal of 64 yards. Well, since 1960, there's only 2 kicks in the NFL that have been 64 yards. 2. And McManus, the kicker for Denver's got a good leg. He is 1 for 8 trying kicks of 60 yards. 1 for 8. So statistically, it was a long shot. It was a bad move. It's much easier to get 5 yards with Russell Wilson in a stadium he's familiar with lots of weapons. It's much easier to get that than at sea level, next to the Puget Sound. Even on a nice day, the air is damp, ball doesn't carry. Longest field goal kick ever in that stadium is 56 yards. You don't go for the field goal. And the coach, Nathaniel Hackett, sort of admitted he was wrong. I had an NFL general manager text me after my show yesterday. He said Denver froze. It's the only explanation. Otherwise, you would have used your timeout, so if you miss the kick, at least you have 2 timeouts left, and Geno Smith is going to kneel or run the ball, so you're going to get the ball back with like 25 seconds left. They froze. So he's kind of admitting he's wrong. But that's way better than the BS job Mike McCarthy of the Cowboys gave us last year. Remember? No timeouts left, 14 seconds left. They run a quarterback draw to the middle of the field with no timeouts. To the middle of the field with 14 seconds. Seriously. There's 14 seconds. There's a 13-second threshold. I believe giving us 1 second of breathing room was our best option. You've got to be kidding me. And that story lasted and was talked about for weeks, if not months. Nathaniel Hackett admitting, probably should have gone for it on 4th and 5, ends the story. Now, if they butcher end-of-game situations going forward, the story will resurface. But my guess is going forward, Nathaniel Hackett, second game, moving forward, more prone to go for it. Also, if you were at home during that game, I still would have gone for it. But 64 yards in the high altitude of Denver makes more sense than 64 yards in Seattle, where the longest field goal ever is 56. So the minute you admit you're wrong, you don't give your critics anywhere to go. But when you do a Mike McCarthy, you extend the story. You give it legs. You create debate. Nathaniel Hackett sort of ends the debate. I should have gone for it. Let's hope when the situation potentially arises going forward, they give it to Russ. So this is interesting. Jerry Rice was on a radio show yesterday, Adam Schein's radio show. And Adam Schein said basically what a lot of us are thinking. You got Jimmy Garoppolo in the bullpen. You have a great roster and a great coach. You guys are struggling to complete passes. Should we potentially be worried about Trey Lance and moving off him like if he can't beat Seattle? Gisele Bündchen, Tom Brady's wife, the supermodel, $500 million net worth. She's basically said, yep, I'm going to let Tom have his career. I'm going to raise a family. She's, when they first met, she was far more successful, probably has as big a net worth. And she's basically, for the family, said, my career, I'll put it on hold, whatever. It's Tom's career. And, those are hard choices for people, right? Like very few people are married to a superstar. I mean, Brady and Gisele are like the top of the American food chain. They're top of the global food chain for superstars and net worth. And the first time in Tom Brady's career, He is fighting a battle on two fronts. The first front is the football front. He's got a new defensive head coach, an injury-riddled offensive line. That part he's battling, and that's never easy. It's football. The second part, the unwavering support at home, it's over. Gisele was quoted in Elle magazine, which I've seen before. I think it's a model magazine or a fashion magazine or something. She said, obviously, I have my concerns. It's a violent sport. I have my kids. I'd like Tom to be more present. That stings. I've definitely had these conversations with him. Ultimately, I feel that everybody has to make a decision that works for them. He needs to follow his joy too. But I wish he was more present. That's tough when you're a dad. You hear that, you got kids. Brady's been brutally honest about this. You know, I see this all the time, and not only in sports, but in Hollywood. I see it in business all the time where people work into their 70s and 80s. Well, you know, obviously Nick Saban could retire now as the greatest coach. But what Nick Saban sees is, I've kind of figured this sport out. We have unbelievable momentum. I want to do something in my life. I don't want to go home and play Wordle and crossword puzzles. And as you get older, if you have the right support system, it often gets easier. The fight to be successful is in your 30s when nobody believes in you. Your 40s when you're battling a lot of people same age in your prime. But once you get to be like 50s or 60s in business, it's hard to stop. It's easier. You've built the alliance. You've built the credibility. You've built the legacy. You've built the net worth. Nick Saban could easily retire. Nick Saban told Jimmy Sexton, his agent, years ago, I just happen to know some people that know those people. He's like, hey, listen, I don't want to be one of these coaches that coaches into their 70s and 80s. And all of a sudden, Saban's still dominating, and he's getting up there. Well, I don't know how old Nick is. He's close to 70. Why would he retire? It'd be crazy to retire. I mean, why in the world would he retire? He still looks good. He sounds good. He's still great, and it's gotten easier for him. He's got Alabama behind him, and that's the issue with Brady that I think he's struggling with. I think if Tom Brady was in the AFC this morning, and he looked at Mahomes and Josh Allen, it'd be much easier to say, hey, man, they are playing a different game than I am. I don't need more playoff losses to my legacy. I'm going to go hang out with my fam. But I think he looks at the NFC. Arizona's now a tire fire. Dallas is a mess. The Rams O-line, a real problem. San Francisco, quarterback issues. Green Bay doesn't have a star receiver. I think one of the reasons, I think it's hard to retire when you see the path and you're like, you start talking yourself into, I can do this for about 3 more years, make $25 million a year. It's easy. It's fun. I want to do something with my life. I think if he looked at Mahomes, I think if he was in the division and had to play Josh Allen twice a year, who's not been forced to punt by Belichick, it'd be very easy to say, I don't feel like finishing in second place. I don't want to add 5 second-place finishes to my resume. And like 8 losses to Josh Allen. Or if he played against Herbert, Derek Carr, and Mahomes in that division, be like, you know what? I don't think third place my last 4 years in the league. His division now is 3 rebuilding teams. Bad quarterbacks. Tanking. The NFC's a crumbling conference. That's what it looks like to me. I think it makes it really, really hard for anybody, any man or woman who's established momentum and credibility. It gets easier as you get older. You're established. You walk into rooms, people open doors for you, and you look around, and your rivals and your competitors are weaker than they've ever been. That makes it really, really hard. I really believe if Tom was in the AFC, it'd be a much easier conversation to go Mahomes, Herbert, Josh Allen, Seacrest out. I'm going to go hang out. Look around the NFC right now. Tampa played, I thought, poorly against the Cowboys, and it was never competitive on the road. With an offensive line that's falling apart, wasn't competitive. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.